income household who maybe he's got holes in his shoes, maybe, you know, he looks dirty and raggedy, and we just kind of push him off to the side because he's never going to get anywhere anyway, we're some really great teachers. But if we maybe take the time to maybe try to help that kid a little bit more, and when all the other students are working on something and we take the time to go over there and specifically ask him if he has a question, then maybe we'll be able to help him. And that follows in with one of the articles that Dr. Mercado posted that says teachers favor middle-class behaviors by students. And this is because our public school systems are set up as middle-class systems. And there's a direct quote from this that says, more specifically, I found that teachers privileged middle-class students by setting middle-class expectations, such as expecting students to voice their needs and proactively seek help. So maybe that kid who's struggling so much just doesn't know how to ask for help because no one at home's going to help him because maybe they don't know how to read. Maybe no one helped them, and that's where generational poverty comes in, is that, well, if they're not getting it at home, so they don't know how to ask us and we just ignore them, how are they ever supposed to help their kids? And how will this affect my English classroom? Well, for one, I set the tone. How I treat my students, how I treat that kid who's maybe a little behind. And that I remember that all children are worthy of learning, and that's something Jonathan Kozel reminded me of. Because it's not that I ever thought, oh, people in poverty need to stay in poverty, but it's that maybe I forgot that these are kids whose situations aren't their own faults. They didn't have a choice what family they were born into, and I'm willing to guess that most of us in here at one point in time or another have wished for another family. Probably, you know, maybe for a second, but, you know, maybe for that moment it was like, can I go live with my friend's family? Because they're real nice people. And then also how I teach my students, and I think that goes along really well with Lev Vygotsky's zone of proximal development and differentiating learning to where there are many sites where you can go, and especially with informational text, get them at slightly different reading levels where maybe some of my higher performing kids could have one a little bit higher, but maybe my lower ones need one just a little bit lower. And so I can still help them reach that next level for them without challenging them so much they get discouraged or leaving them so behind that they'll never catch up. And increase my incorporation of diverse literature. And I mean that in culture, in socioeconomic status, and in a variety of types. Tupac has a book of poems. And this book of poems is, I used to know the title, it's The Rose That Grew from Concrete. Now, I'd probably have to go and look ahead and look at these poems, but if that's what it's going to take to teach my kids poetry, I'll teach them from Tupac's poems, because I'll tell y'all I'm actually pretty into the rap genre. There's actually a J. Cole lyric that I've wanted to drop this entire time about they tell hittas sell dope, rap, or go to NBA in that order. And that's the way these places view it. And in teaching the different types of diverse literature, that goes beyond the standards of NCTE and Common Core, and just you have to have some. But also, what if I taught these more than just during Black History Month, or more than just around the time of Cinco de Mayo? And what if I taught tolerant, instead of teaching tolerance, I taught understanding? Because we teach kids to tolerate other people's behaviors and differences, but what if I taught them to understand that everybody's different, and maybe I taught them about social mobility and privilege and all these different things that make up who we are. Jonathan Kozel says that after all these years, America still runs a separate and unequal system. And I want to pair this with one last quote that says, unless someone like you cares a whole awful lot, nothing is going to get better. It's not. And while Dr. Seuss was using this about environmental issues, it's true about most of the issues in our society, is that unless we care about these kids enough to try to figure out the answers to how we can give them all equity, then nothing's going to happen. These kids are going to be left in poverty, and that's just going to continue. So, does anybody have any questions?
Stop that camera and give her a round of applause.